Good morning if you are with us Sunday morning live on Facebook. And if you are watching a recording of this service at any time or day, greetings. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalists of Transylvania County. I am Frank Parsons, the AV Tech Specialist at UUTC and the Service Coordinator for today. I have a few announcements to highlight from the newsletter. Please read your email copy for all the details. Calendars are still available. For only $15, you get to look at the beauty of Transylvania County through the lens of selected UUTC photographers. January is a great month to get your new calendar if you haven't already. A memorial service is planned in memory of Allison Marlette at 2 p.m. next Saturday, January 16th. If you have memories to share, please contact Reverend Bob Rangillian. There is an internet scam where people pretend to be a friend in need and ask you to text or email, and they then get you to send money. They give excuses as to why you can't call them. That's because they are not the people they pretend to be. Even our most recently deceased UUTC member's name has been used to ask for money. That's pretty obviously not real, but other names might trick you. Don't reply to such messages, but you can look up the real phone number for the UUTC person in your phone address book or realm and say, "Hi friend, thinking of you today." Thank you for joining us in this sacred place during these troubled times, from the safety of your homes and a community consecrated by our presence and our commitment. We are a welcoming and inclusive congregation. We invite your participation and welcome you whoever you are, without regard to your race, color, age, sex, gender, orientation, politics, or abilities. We require no creed or particular religious belief, asking only that you bring your goodwill and an open heart. Our mission is to promote individual spiritual journeys and to promote social, economic, and environmental justice. To any guests or newcomers we have watching with us today, thank you for taking a chance and taking the time to find us online and join us for worship. And to our members and friends, please use the chat to commune with each other, to reconnect as a UUTC family, and to express your appreciation. Our call to worship is provided by Matthew Canizio, I Know the Way. Please relax and let the music lead you into the spirit of worship.
I'm Jane Hilliard, and this is a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. Today, psychologists have a favorite word, and that word is maladjusted. I tell you today that there are some things in our social system to which I am proud to be maladjusted. I shall never be adjusted to lynch mobs, segregation, economic inequalities, the madness of militarism, and self-defeating physical violence. The salvation of the world lies in maladjusted.
We now move more deeply into our worship by lighting our chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. Our words are from Nancy Reed McKee. Our community knows no boundaries. We are not confined by the physical limits of walls, or for that matter, of what often binds us, restricts us, holds us back. We are freer than we know when we release ourselves and each other from expectations of what is needed for true community. We are here together in space. I see you. I hear you. I love you. And I light this chalice, a beacon of this community, holding us all together, here, now. Please join in our first hymn of the morning, number 42, Morning So Fair to See. The words will be on your screen.
Morning so fair to see, night veiled in mystery, glorious the earth and resplendent skies. Pilgrims we march along, singing our joyous song as though an earthly paradise. Tall are the verdant trees, deep are the flashing seas, glorious each wonder the seasons bring. Brighter is face surmise, shining in pilgrim eyes, from which our waking spirits spring. Age after age we rise, neath the eternal skies, into the light from the shadowed past. Still shall our pilgrim song, buoyant and brave and strong, resound while life and mountains last.
Now is a time in our service for those whose hearts are full of sorrow, of concern, or of joy. We believe joys are magnified and worry and grief eased by sharing them in loving community. For those of you watching our service online, I invite you to share your joys, concerns, and personal messages by using the chat function. I will not be able to see and read the chat, but I will include a candle to represent those things shared by folks at home. I light a candle of gratitude for those whose commitment we see and value, the sanitation workers, the nurses and doctors, the teachers and the postal workers, and for those whose quiet dedication to their unseen jobs make our life easier. This light is for the tiring work of essential workers. I light this next candle of encouragement during distress. We must work to avoid the polarization that surrounds us, feeds us, and sometimes drains our souls of hope. May we find the courage and strength to hold our convictions, yet still recognize the inherent worth and dignity of others. I light a candle of support for those who have fled nature's wrath here and in the world, and with love for our connections. May we continue to be there for each other and reach out to connect and help each other. We need each other to survive. Once again, I light a candle of support for those who speak up and speak out, bravely standing on the side of justice, imagining a better world for all. We are grateful for them. I light a candle for those prayers lifted up in the chat box by those at home. A light is burning here, even as we cannot be with each other. I light one final candle for all the joys and sorrows that are not yet ready to share. May this flame spark in each of us a connection and commitment to each other to listen deeply and leave spaces and invitation to reveal the things in our hearts. Let us hold them in our hearts as we listen to music provided by Matthew Canizio.
I invite you into this time of meditation and prayer. Spirit of love and life, we who come to this moment in time and of history may be feeling rattled by the events of this week, by the ways in which we may be fearful in the light of the political all around us. Spirit of love and life, please flow through us that we might become more even-keeled, grounded, able to breathe again, to step far enough back, but not to disengage, to breathe and to recognize our prayers for connection with one another, our hopes for the health of loved ones, our griefs over those who are lost, are still a part of our prayers. May we remember to breathe, to meditate, to reconnect with all that helps us be grounded, feel whole, and connected. For all this, the meditations of our minds, the prayers of our hearts, we say, blessed be. Amen. And now we hear from Jane Hilliard.
I'm Jane Hilliard, and this is a quote from Elizabeth Lesser in her book, Broken Open, the chapter, Bozos on the Bus. I believe that we're all bozos on the bus, contrary to this self-assured image that we work so hard to present to each other on a daily basis. We're all half-baked experiments, mistake-prone beings born without an instruction book into a complex world. None of us are models of perfect behavior. We have all betrayed and been betrayed. We've been known to be egotistical, unreliable, lethargic, and stingy. And each one of us has times awakened in the middle of the night worrying about everything from money, kids, or terrorism to wrinkled skin and receding hairlines. In other words, we're all bozos on the bus. This, in my opinion, is cause for celebration. If we're all bozos, then for God's sake, we can put down the burdens of pretense and get on with being bozos. We can approach the problems that visit bozo-type beings without the usual embarrassment and resistance. It's so much more effective to work on our rough edges with a light and forgiving heart, imagining how freeing it would be to take a more compassionate and comedic view of the human condition, not as a way to deny our defects, but as a way to welcome them as part of the standard human operating system. Every single person on this bus called Earth hurts. It's when we have shame about our feelings that hurt turns into suffering. In our shame, we feel outcast, as if there is another bus somewhere rolling along on a smooth road. Its passengers are all thin, healthy, happy, well-dressed, and well-liked people who belong to harmonious families, hold jobs that don't bore or aggravate them, and never do mean things or goofy things like forget where they parked their car, or lose their wallet, or say something totally inappropriate. We long to be on that bus with the normal people. We're on the bus that says bozos on the front, and we worry that we may be the only passenger on board. This is the illusion that so many of us labor under, that we're all alone in our weirdness and our uncertainty, that we may be the most lost person on the highway. Of course, we don't always feel like this. Sometimes a wave of self-forgiveness washes over us, and suddenly we're connected to our fellow human beings. Suddenly we belong. It's wonderful to take your place on the bus with the other bozos. It may be the first step to enlightenment, to understand with all your brain cells that the other bus, the sleek bus with the cool people who know where they're going, is also filled with bozos. When we see clearly that every single human being, regardless of fame or fortune or age, or brains or beauty, shares the same ordinary foibles, a strange thing happens. We begin to cheer up, to loosen up, and we become as buoyant as those people we imagined on the other bus. As we rumble along the potholed road, lost as ever, through the valleys and over the hills, we find ourselves among friends. We sit back and enjoy the ride.
Thank you for being with us this Sunday, or whenever it is you're watching. My sermon this morning is inspired by our monthly Soul Matters theme. I will be holding a discussion for those who are part of the packet reading and study group. This is the month in which we look at how are we a people of imagination. It is one of those topics that I love and enjoy, for we who are Unitarian Universalists are not bound by creeds. We're not told that all the wisdom is of the past. We are encouraged to remember that we can shape our theology, our purpose in life, our ability to find our way in religion, in life, in all ways that matter for daily living. We are, in fact, most necessarily a people of imagination. I've revised somewhat the way in which I am approaching this topic because of the storming of the Capitol building, the reality that I know I'm walking into a Sunday morning in which folks may have, through fear, through astonishment, through anger, cut off that higher quality of our being, and that is our creativity and our imagination. All that we witness must indeed stir us to think of new ways of responding to what's going on around us, but not to be yanked around by the fear or the despair or the horror or the sense of defeat or any number of the feelings that may have come to the fore. Hence my prayer this morning with a chance to breathe, and my change of reading to find that Jane Hilliard had pre-recorded bozos on the bus to get us to think more in our own humility of how we imagine things. Sometimes we feel small and hopeless. Sometimes we feel that we just aren't good enough compared to others. Sometimes in our, self-chosen minority status religiously in Transylvania County, perhaps we wonder if we seem or appear to be the only bozo on the bus, or the only bus of such humble human beings. I like how Unitarian Universalists can imagine new ways of being. And we don't get there when we're in scared mode, fear mode, whatever places that stifle our sense of being able to draw from new perspectives. I like the idea that if we're just slightly off in our view of things compared to others in our community, we are providing depth perception. We are seeing a hidden resource. In some ways, we're like Toto, who goes behind the curtain and opens it for others. Unitarian Universalists have stepped forward in many fields, in many walks of life, to think anew. How would we help create new ways of sanitation in our society? How would we revise the ways in which mental health patients are being cared for? How would we invent the casework method of social work? How would we re-envision public education? How would we, in whatever fields we are in, step forward to public service, to speak up for parks, to revise the ways in which public safety is handled? We are a people of imagination if you realize each of the areas I've talked to have people behind them who were associated with our movement centuries ago. Henry Whitney Bellows, or Red Cross work, or the work of Mary Ellen Richmond in that social work advancement, or those who remain unnamed in our history, or forgotten, or unknown, but we take for granted today what was only imagined years ago. I like to think the fact that there are probably more Unitarian Universalists per capita serving in the Capitol or in many public service situations, because we like to imagine how things might grow and change. We used words like evolution before it was polite in society. We don't discard the word progress just because some in society are feeling like it's a bad thing to change the way we've always done things. We are a people of imagination, And I'd like us to think about the ways in our own lives we might be called to imagine. We might be called to imagine new ways of helping people in Transylvania to listen to those who are in need. We might be called to use new imagination in ways that might help fundraise for parks or services to communities that might often be ignored. We here in Transylvania County might imagine ways of writing our letters to the editor, our comments on social media, to help open up the minds and visions of others who are not standing exactly where we are in seeing the world from a fresh perspective and angle. When I hear people say we all need to be unified, I remember the years in which much of our music was switching to unison chants and songs. It helps those who are unfamiliar with harmonization. But I'm a bass singer, and I love to hear the different ways in which composers have found harmonies to those melodies that we might all know and sing. There are different ways of not changing the melody, but lifting what's under it, or a descant over it. I like to think of Unitarian Universalists as those who continue with the themes that are so strong in the efforts of democracy or progress in social ways in our nation. For the rights of others, for the rights of the underprivileged, for the listening for the voices of those who normally don't get heard, and to bring forth something of a harmony to go along with it. I'm not against the unity of it all, but I really think America is way too complex. Transylvania, way too complex. Even our own congregation is way too complex to stay on one melody line, but to allow others to go off. As barbershoppers say, maybe it's all woodshedding. That is, you're just going off informally and not relying on composition rules, but playing it by ear, literally, trying to get the harmonies meshed in some way, and maybe laughing about it when it doesn't quite work and going back to it again. Again, as a barbershopper, I remember the history of singing barbershop quartet music when we became an official hobby with a name and a national organization and sign up and dues. The history books tell us that near the beginning of the contests where the quartets were singing, they would stop the quartet sometimes in those early days and say, "Are you just using some kind of formal composition on this one?" Because they wanted it to be natural. Since then, we've loosened up the rules. We can have arrangers who help us. I'd like us to imagine that too. Which guest speakers might we want in this pulpit who would stretch our minds and our visions, expand our hearts, give refreshment to our spirit? I'm not jealous when that happens, because I know that if we are energized by different voices, my job is a whole lot easier. Not because Unitarian Universalists are something like herding of cats, but maybe because Unitarian Universalists, when they tap into a new joy and a new vision with curiosity, their imaginations start up with a spark. I have no doubt that out of all the mess that we've been living through politically, there will be Unitarian Universalists speaking, writing, creating songs, marching, or showing up in new ways, imagining how could our life grow out of what we were scared of into what we hope yet might be, or the promise of what we thought would be. My colleague, the Reverend Ashley Horan, wrote, "Another world is possible." Another world is possible. We say it again and again, even when the proof lies somewhere beyond the horizon, beyond our reach, beyond our imagination. This is our faith. Another world is possible. Not somewhere else, another world or another lifetime. No, right here and now for us and all. Another world is possible. There is no single path towards that world, no one strategy or approach that will restore balance, heal brokenness. Let's think of that, folks. Let's listen to the differences of the ways in which people think moving forward is going to make the most sense. Let's speak up. We're in 2021, folks. We're trying to imagine a budget that will help our congregation move forward past the time when we'll be vaccinated, past the time in which some of the horrors we have lived through are lifting. And you know it as well as I, deep into some new muck and muddle that humans have created or fumbled or bungled, and it's going to take every bit of our imagination. We're going to need to come back to a worship space that hasn't been seen in months. We're going to have to embrace the fact that there will still be people who need to be sequestered at home, unable, or due to health concerns, cautious about coming back in June or after or whenever it is in which we have figured out it's safe once again. We've had to imagine how to put together these services. We've had to be a people of imagination when we wonder how we still volunteer to provide food for soup kitchens, assistance to charities, to be engaged in all our ways. Tell me, folks, how are we, a people of imagination, going to team with people who would be proud to tell us, to put us in our place about where we're wrong? Can we imagine that? We, in all our hubris, to step back and reimagine ourselves as being guided by people and populations who we'd love to help overcome injustice, but realize that we have to be invited in. Yes, we're a people of imagination. We imagined a world in which LGBTQ rights were equal. We imagined a world with the abolishment of slavery. We imagined a world in which, in marching with Martin Luther King Jr., we were the maladjusted, the accusations thrown at us. We must still be maladjusted today and go forth with our new visions. Welcome. 2021 is slowly going to come, even as it seems we're still stuck in 2020 in many ways. Find your vision. Share it. Speak it. Write it out. Join with others. We are a people of imagination, and the world needs us. Thank you. May it be so. This is the time in which, like any televangelist, which I didn't train to be, but that seems to be what I do, I speak to you in your homes over the cameras, and then I pull out the ask. This is the time in which, unlike a televangelist, I tell you that we have a Unitarian Universalist congregation that is real, and you get to see me at porch visits or wherever else. You know each other, and you're not so disparate, even as we are now sheltering in our homes. This is the place in which this basket was not made in China, but right here in Transylvania County by one of our own members. This congregation was made by us and those we remember. This congregation makes a difference because of the best of what you give. And what you give out of love, we receive with joy and say thank you. There'll be a link in the chat box, or if you want to go searching for it later on our website or through the Realm access that you have for the database of the church, you can make a monetary contribution. Thank you for whatever of your time, talent, and treasure you have given. Thank you for this time of offering. I ask you to please join me now in singing hymn number 12, O Life That Maketh All Things New. The words will be on your screen. As I move to extinguish our chalice, I continue the words of Reverend Ashley Horan. There are many routes toward liberation, toward freedom, but the abundance of options does not absolve us from the responsibility of acting. Another world is possible. In this time of despair, of fear, of collapse, this time that is both like every other era and like no other in this time of history, it is audacious to declare our faith and to commit our work to a world that is more free, more just, and more whole. But we are an audacious, and I would say imaginative, people in good company, with many kin, and we're ready to show up and stay humble and make friends and hold the vision, starting here now, today, with us, and persevering, however long it takes, until that other world is not only possible, but another world is here. May you go forth with the glow of this light into your week. May you remember, like this helper candle, to carry a light that will help others ignite their way. May you go forth in solidarity with the vision and the hopefulness and the imagination that will help us to bring a new world. Blessed be. Amen.